Hi guys, I'm joined by Neil and Ari from the Wooster Group, and they just performed the Symphony of the Rats, which is their new show. And I'm Sarah. I'm currently a first year BFA acting student at CalArts. So to start off with, could you guys talk a little bit about your role and what you play in the show and what the show is generally about?
Okay, so I'm Ari. I play the President of the United States, but don't let that fool you. It's nothing very realistically portrayed. We don't really work that way. Maybe you'll find some, as an audience member, you might make some connections to things in real life, but it's very much a piece of the imagination. I feel like this is a flask I should be drinking out of. I really feel like this reminds me a lot actually of being inside the imagination of two artists, Richard Foreman, who wrote the text, and Liz, who is sort of our artist. And it's kind of like those two imaginations, in a lab, having some kind of experiment that we concocted, and the two things fusing. And then Kate, who's also our director, and it was her original idea and is sort of the visionary of the piece, her imagination in there too, and then collectively all our imaginations join in, and it's very it's sort of it is very much like a dreamscape or a mindscape. And the basic premise is, suppose we had a president who allowed their imagination to function full time. I find that line is very much the thesis of the piece. And the rest of the piece is a very fun ride, and sometimes dark and scary ride, as imaginations can be, into that journey and to find out. But it's I think people are surprised. People will always be a little bit surprised if they come in thinking they're going to see a piece about a president who goes on some kind of cathartic psychological journey, because that's not so much the way we work. There's no real technique or method, but we do have lots of time to work on things because we own our own space in New York City, and it's very much a laboratory where we have the freedom to throw things up and have it fail multiple times, get bored of something, get excited by it, and then cut it 2 weeks later. So it's really like a slow process of building this thing, but the most concise way of presenting it, I think, is that it's the imagination of these artists, including us, as it is developed.
Yeah, and I play an assistant to the president, I guess, but I also many other things within the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's hard to talk about character in this piece.
With the exception of you.
Yeah, and then it's like a character that has the boundaries of it are kind of why they're constantly dissociating, right?
Yeah, but it is. We refer to you as the president.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody else really has a
name.
Yeah. I guess Dee Dee kind of has a character, or more of a iconographic kind of
the counsel to the president.
Spiritual advisor, right? Yeah. But even in Foreman's text, it's not labeled as being, there are descriptors, but for what the kind of characters are or personas, but it's really about, Kate, who was in the original show and sort of played Mai, and Andy, who also plays the other kind of assistant to the president. Peyton Smith and Kate Vaughn were both those similar parts, but we changed them enormously. It changed the gender of them, did all these things to make it our own.
Production in the 80s, right?
Yeah, in 87, yeah.
That
right?
we just are not taking anything from,
just
the text of
the
play itself.
Yeah.
So there's no staging or mimicking or any reference to that.
Not at all.
I'm often think of Alice in Wonderland, and him and Andy are Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Yeah. And Alice, and there's the Mad Hatter, and there's the White Rabbit, and that's another way of thinking about what the story, I think, of the piece is.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think one of the really fun things, and interesting things as a performer who's done more naturalistic theater, and this is the first show that I've performed with Wooster. I've rehearsed other things with them, but it's so, I don't know, maybe Liz would not want this word, but like gestalt in a way of like the audience completes and fills in all these things, all these kind of spaces of, that are not for us very linear, and they kind of make something out of it. And I think, I don't know, whether it's a character or moment in the show, the audience is kind of always filling in these things, and then you interact with the audience and they've created some. My uncle was like, oh, you guys are all in a spaceship, or you say for yourself, oh, it's Alice in Wonderland. But as Foreman says, you want to suggest all those, ambiguities at once,
right.
All the possibilities at the same time. It's, what is it? The secret sweetness hiding in what we fear the most. It's all the different,
That's a Foreman
reference. Yeah.
The original production is actually performed in 1988.
Yeah.
And so like what kind of changed, but like I think you two already touched upon like what kind of changed. Like you took the test, but like there is the incorporation of, I guess, technology, right? So like I was wondering, like could you talk more about that, like the technology like aspects, because that was really cool to incorporate into theater, and it's like very avant-garde. Yeah, and how was the rehearsal process like behind that?
Our technical artists are actually on full-time staff. We have a sound artist, Eric Schleuder, and a video artist, Udom, and we have a lighting people, and they are involved in the piece from the beginning. In fact, or even earlier than Neil was. They're just there all the time.
Yeah.
And so the way that we integrate technology is the way we integrate performance. Like everybody's there, and everybody chips in. Everybody is, Liz likes to find out what people are good at and put them in situations that they thrive in. She always brings in young people. Both those video guys, those video artists, and the sound art. They're young. They're like 30 and younger. Yeah, they're a lot of young blood, and they bring in a lot of the things that they are familiar with. They nerd out on this on software that's new, and they bring it into the room, just like Neil brings his work on television or as an actor and we tap into that or challenge him in different ways, because we think he might be able to, it's all about like the people in the room and what they bring. And so the technical artists are there from the beginning, making the work with us. So it's not like what you might be used to, where there's like kind of a tech week, and then the end it's like sort of slapped on at the end, which is, I think, financially that's how the model is that demands that. But we're very fortunate that we have that, and so what you're witnessing is a very layered. All those mistakes that I talk about from performance and creative choices are similar with the video and the sound, which Liz ultimately is kind of like designing everything, but everybody's throwing in ideas, putting stuff up on the video. She says no, but then she says yes, but she says more like this, and she gets excited, she gets an idea, then that leads to a performance idea, then one of us has an idea and tries something out. So it's all like from the beginning, and that's an important way to think about our work.
There isn't some concept that anyone is putting forth that's such a clear idea.
Right.
It emerges so organically. And so in the same way Ari referred to, like, with this piece, we joked all the time about how much was left on the cutting room floor, because we made like 10, 20 different versions of every part of the show. And the same thing is like there's so many different like soundscapes and versions of songs and video works that Udom and Eric and, different, let alone like the lighting of a scene changes constantly, and accommodates a space. So all those things, to support what Ari said. But I think also we always have a rehearsal camera. Even when we're working here, we have a camera recording us in rehearsal. So in talking about tech, then some of the things that we're working with off the video as performers are rehearsal tapes of us in the room. So another, I think, example that's so interesting, I don't know, I would have wanted to learn about as a student. We'll discover something, or you'll make a mistake that Liz will love, and she'll remember it. And then the next day we go back and we watch the tape all together of what we did the day before, and then it's on the monitor and you're working with it. So there are things that we like.
We flag it.
Yeah.
So if something happens in the room that somebody likes, we do this so that when we're looking through the video, we can mark the moment. And then we like excise it, and we create what we call an accident tape out of it that we then try to recreate.
Yeah.
And that's like something to note too, is like as sort of like tight and specific and detailed and polished as it might seem, the process is incredibly chaotic and like full of failure and
sometimes extremely boring. I mean, I think figuring out the magic cabinet took us like months. There's a lot of recording of line readings, but the technology has is the medium and part of the way that we interact with each other. And
everything can be so spontaneous because technology is so nimble now. So it's like, oh, we need to record something and get it out, and so Eric can put it in the system, and then suddenly there's a microphone and he's recording us, and then suddenly it's in the show. Like there's like so little lag time between having an idea and just trying it with the internet, having everything available to us to like get content and pull it out, like these pop culture references we use and stuff.
Yeah, the research is like on the same screen on stage. Like our set we have no days where the set is not kind of up. So like the same TV that you see on stage will be, look something up on Google, like right before the show. Somebody's like, oh, look up this like Mark Twain thing. And then we're looking that up. And that's like, it's not, there's no separation or, demarcation of, so it all kind of blurs together. Yeah.
And also, and the media blurs together. And so you have like video artists and you have, Liz is a visual artist primarily. She came out of visual art. She was not a theater director. And this is like her canvas and where her materials. Like this is, we're much more in the world of fine art than we are in theater. But because of grants, unfortunately, we have to apply for those dumb theater grants instead of making tons of money putting this piece in somebody's apartment. You can't put this in anybody's apartment, so we can't make money that way. But it's very much more that, and the video artistry and the visual art is like in some ways more than theater art, but the principles still apply. It's like use all the content and all the things at your disposal that we have now. It's such a great gift to be able to access things and use with like not very expensive technology, make material, get rid of it. It doesn't cost you anything.
Due to like the changes in technology now. I mean, you could say that Wooster maybe is a reaction to the TV or something, that kind of change in technology, with Liz putting TVs on stage and stuff. But this is how you guys worked previously.
Yeah, it just took a lot longer.
Exactly.
It just took a lot longer, but it seemed like, looking back, it seems like what a privilege, much more of a privilege in a way to have that space to accommodate the kind of infrastructure that you need for even like that primitive TV stuff they used to do. But now you don't need any.
Or record players too.
Yeah, record player. She's always worked with technology. Whatever was available to them to use, she would use. It's all part of our world.
And it's amazing that it has changed so much, the technology. And I mean, the work has changed, but also the core experience of like working with these source materials is still so key, when you watch like early Spalding Gray pieces or whatever, her work with.
Sure. So I'm just curious because I'm also like, I sing too, and there's like it's like the Symphony of the Rats, right? So like it kind of sounded music theater, but it also didn't. So I was wondering, was that also part of the rehearsal? Like when you guys found out, like how did that come to be? Because usually I don't hear that type of singing in, I guess, like other styles. Like the ice cream song, I really like that. It was really funny. I was like laughing with my friends. Like it's like
the text for Liz was always very musical. Music was always going to be her way in. That the only way that the text could come alive would somehow to have it be a piece of music. The whole thing. So even the non-musical elements are still for her music, I think, and that we turned a lot of the text into verse. Actually, iambic pentameter, just to create a kind of musical rhythm to the text, and then even the things that aren't in that are kind of have their own music and are pre-recorded and are manipulated in such a way so as to be musical. But then also, we didn't realize what a great singer this guy was, and Andy's such a beautiful singer. So we have a lot of great musicians in the piece.
Yeah.
And there was also this idea, I think, early on of it being like almost a children's show.
Yeah.
That there was this kind of like, walking the president through, like in the beginning I talk about Paddington, Winnie the Pooh, these kind of like these children's stories that have a narrator and that take you through the story of the president and all the different adventures that he goes on. And then there's a song, and then we're talking about feelings, and then
exactly.
but you know, in a different, it doesn't come across necessarily like that, but it has that spirit to it, right?
Yeah.
A huge also person who's so important in this show, who's in our ear all the time, we haven't talked about, is Suzy Roach, who took all, you know, Liz would say, oh, I kind of want this, should feel like a children's song, so take this form and text, and with minimal alterations, sometimes none, sometimes, you know, more, or kind of mashing it with something else, she would, you know, create some song or something, and then Eric would collaborate with her and remix it and change things, and then she would come back and it'd be completely unrecognizable in like a month. But Suzy is in our ear the whole time. So when or not the whole time, but for certain songs. And so, and her work is all over the show. But I think also, I wonder, I don't know if also putting it in that, Foreman does have like a kind of music or, you know, a very specific kind of way of like delivering text, presenting his language, and a whole aesthetic style. And one of Liz's, you know, commands that she got from him, or I guess things that he, when they asked if they could do the show again, he said, I just want it to be completely unrecognizable. And I think in the same way, you know, that meter helped us hear it in our own way, and the music distances it from, you know, makes it unrecognizable, a whole other thing. But it finds its way back to him, I think.
That's really cool, because I love the voice too in the beginning and like the music. So I just really appreciate you guys answering the question about the voice part. So last question to conclude. Do you guys have any general advice for like young actors? Thank you. Yeah, it's like I put them on pink outfit. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah, like general advice for like young actors, like performing advice or like life advice, just anything in general, theater, film. Yeah.
I've done a little TV.
Yes.
Neil is a television actor. I mean, that's it's how he makes money.
Yep.
And that is a different kind of life that is very much like, you know, good luck with that. But it's like so many things have to go in your way for that to happen as a career. And then there's this, but you should always, if it's a dream of yours, you should just work and do whatever you can to be in class and to like be surrounded by people who are creative, and to, I mean, I don't know, maybe you could speak to that better, but it's like, that's a different thing. It has to do more with the business.
Yes.
And so, but in terms of like making work as a performer or as a group of people, I was like, find a space.
Okay. Yes.
Find people that you don't have to like them, but you have to be inspired by them and interested in them. And that's a big lesson, because sometimes you don't like the people you work with. Look at all the bands that break up. They don't like each other, but they make great work together. And find people that you make great work with, and take the time you need to make something that you love and that's beautiful. And it might take a long time, but it'll be worth it. And don't put any deadlines. That's why it's hard to talk about the acting thing, because that is so limited to the work that you get. But anyone can make work. Just find a space, find people, fuck around with technology or not, and make something that you're interested in and tell stories that you want to tell. That's what I would say.
And I would say, I think also just like learning about all different kinds of art and having experiences. Like one thing that Ari talked about is like, so much of this show emerges from the unconscious minds of everyone in the room, and all the things that you're reading, and like they all serve you. And that is true even in naturalistic television work or whatever. Your imagination ripening will increase, I don't know, the strength of your work. Like I came from a very naturalistic tradition, and then I saw Wooster actually here at Redcat in this Harold Pinter show in the room, and I saw Ari on stage and Suzy and Kate, and I was like, and a bunch of other great performers, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, how are they doing this? And I think following that impulse is a really great thing, and if you can remain like curious about different kinds of acting and different kinds of performance. I know working with Wooster, I've learned so much about dance and no theater and visual art and all these things that just live in the world of the room. before I was reading just like plays, and I was reading Pinter. But I think that's really important too. But just having like a broader awareness and imagination of what acting can be, because there's quite a limit that's placed upon you when you are just waiting around for an audition about, or whether it's some commercial thing or even something that's not that commercial, like sides on a page can look very uniform, and then you go out and have an experience that's so much more about the way your body is in a space, So I just think like being open. Yeah.
That's great. Great advice. Yeah, thanks. I guess that's all for our questions for now. Thank you guys so much for answering these, and yeah.